How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to Sip Talk. We are not talking about Final Destination 4 today. No, because that movie doesn't even exist. The fourth installment of the Final Destination series is called The Final Destination. So today we are talking about The Final Destination and how terrible this fucking movie was. And we can just jump right into it right now because I don't want to spend an hour and a half talking about this like the last movie, because this movie made Final Destination 3 look like a Best Picture recipient. So, God, I'm legitimately angry that I'm doing
He's
this because
pissed.
I've
He's
never
pissed.
seen this movie before. Some parts I laughed, but just
Can,
terrible.
can
This
I just
was
say,
absolutely this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. I'm not joking. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
I'd like to add to that, but can I just say that they styled this as the Final Destination. 2 years later, they made Final Destination 5. So this we got one more to go, my friend.
I mean, honestly, thank God, because there's nothing that could possibly be worse than this. So let's jump right into this. We'll start with the cast as we usually do. Bobby Campo was our lead star as Nick O'Bannon. The only notable thing I found of old Bobby was he played YOLO in season 4 of Justified, one of my favorite shows. Not a serious character, maybe like one scene, honestly. He played a henchman. He beat the shit out of Patton Oswalt. It was a great scene. Chantel Van Santen as Lori Milligan. She is on One Tree Hill, The Flash, Shooter, The Boys, and FBI. I would say she probably has I'd say most solid TV career. I think out of
Uh,
most people that we've seen on this series.
she, oh, well, just this movie, she was the most recognizable face. Like, I didn't know who she was, but I was like, she's definitely in something that I've seen.
Nick Zano played Hunt Wynorski. He was in What I Like About You, Cougar Town 90210, and Two Broke Girls. Haley Webb as Jeanette Cunningham. McKelty Williamson as George, the security guard. He's most notably Bubba in Forrest Gump. He was also Elston Limehouse in Justified, another great season. Actually, he's Elston Limehouse in multiple seasons. Oh, Limehouse. Love Elston. And then Justin Wellborn, the racist tow truck driver, was also Carl in Justified.
Wow, Justified
So
coming through.
so the first season of Justified came out, I would say maybe a year after they filmed this. And, it's weird because it's like, oh, that's weird because, these movies are supposed to take place in New York. Doesn't feel very Southern. So this one took place in the fucking South because
This,
this movie was filmed in New Orleans, even though the series is supposed to take place in New York and it's usually filmed
oh,
in Canada. But no, David R. Ellis, the director, who is also the same director as the second movie, which is now obvious. I can really see the difference now. He wanted to film it in New Orleans, and this is true. He personally accepted the offer to be the director because this movie was going to be in 3D. And
oh.
knowing that this movie is in 3D makes a lot of sense now, because if I was a couple Coors Banquets deep watching this in an IMAX, I probably would have loved this shit. When I'm watching on my TV on my Roku, no, this is fucking abysmal.
I do want to also add that it came out in 2009. Definitely a dated movie. Feels like a 2009. Just the style and the way they're talking and the in jokes and stuff. Although I have to say that there wasn't as many like references to the outside world as we've seen. It was more just like the fashion stuff for me. That was just like, whoa, Abercrombie and Fitch, my friend. Ever heard of it?
This movie earned $28.3 million in its opening weekend, and it remained number one in North America for 2 weeks, making it the first and only film in the series to top the box office.
America should be shamed. The world should be ashamed that this movie made in total 186 million dollars. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like we were a year into Obama. You think the change would have come by then.
Thanks, Obama.
Trailer and tagline: this summer, death saved the best for 3D. All I can think about is that Fairly Odd Parents episode where they're watching like a really crappy horror movie, but they put on the 3D glasses
Mm.
and it's like, whoa, it's so real.
The 3D was obvious watching it on TV, but I was just like didn't do a whole lot for me, I have to say.
Also interesting, I found this kind of interesting. First time that the poster didn't feature any of the characters. Probably because you
It
don't get to know any of the fucking characters.
Interesting also that the opening title sequences aren't like some spooky setting exposition setting. It's basically just like the deaths from the previous one.
Well, before we get into that, let's hop into our first scene because it wasn't even an opening credit scene. The opening credits came after. God,
Oh, you're
I
right.
guess
You're right.
I guess. Well, I'm not gonna say it yet. I'm not gonna say it. So we'll get into it in a second. First off, we start off in a NASCAR race. We just jump right into it. NASCAR race. I will say the opening song does sound like something from NASCAR 2009 for PlayStation 2, so they got that right. To be more specific, it was Devour by Shinedown, which is so 2009. By the way, that Shinedown album, great album. That was fifth grade Pete. Loved that album. They
Oh, so
could have
you're
used
jamming.
they
You're
could have
jamming
used
to
that
this.
album. They could have used it more, you know. Sometimes goodbye is a second chance. Use that song. That song would have worked perfect.
Yeah, I don't think Devour works with this opening scene. No, I mean in
No,
this
it's a
series.
it's a it's a good NASCAR song. It fit the vibe. If
Okay,
you if
okay.
if you played NASCAR '09 like I have, it fits the vibe. I do think they should have used the whole album. You know,
Yeah.
if you only knew, has nothing to do with the movie, just a banger. We are at the Megatech 300 at McKinley Speedway.
McKinley, did you notice that?
I did notice that because this movie is supposed to take place in McKinley in New York, but it's so obvious it was filmed in the fucking bayou. And like they sound southern. The people
Oh,
sound southern.
and we got a racist, but we'll get to him.
Well, there's racists everywhere, but come on, Bauer.
I know. I'm sorry.
We've already noted that we clearly didn't make enough progress if this movie topped the box office. By the way, Megatech 300, great name for a fake race.
Yeah. Here's the thing: the track seemed a little junior league to me. No, maybe.
No. Big Martinsville vibes, you know?
Okay, that makes sense. I just thought the grandstand was like 100 people at best.
It was a small grandstand. I also like to point out it gave me like New Hampshire Motor Speedway
Yeah.
vibes, very small. And the fence was clearly CGI'd because like every racetrack, the fence is higher. Like they
Mm.
literally had a tiny chain linked fence that your little league field would have in the outfield. It's like, no, that's not happening. So we meet Nick and his friends whose names we like don't even know at this point. I'm not even gonna try to get into who is who. And that's not on me. That's not on me. That's on the movie because this movie did such a poor fucking job setting up who these people actually are.
We'll get to it for sure. But the biggest problem with this movie, besides being not funny when it's trying to be funny, is that basically it's just a death scene, a death scene, a death scene, a death scene, a death scene. There is no progression, no character development. We don't know who any of these people are.
What, you just come here to see a crash? No, I come here to see him drive around in circles. Of course I came here to see a crash. That was kind of funny. By the way, I need to let you and the audience know 2009 was my peak NASCAR phase.
Okay.
Like fifth grade, peak of my NASCAR phase. I had like all the trading cards. I had the little like cards, trading cards where you can build a little car. I was playing the video games. I was watching the Nationwide series as well as the Sprint Cup, you know, just to see
I
if Jeff Burton could do a little something. Brian Vickers, Joey Logano, a young buck. Tony Stewart hadn't killed a guy yet. Oh, I loved NASCAR back then.
I was a little phased out by then. Mine was that NASCAR 2004 Tropic. What was it called? Thunder or something. I can't remember the name, but I know the year. I used to play that all the time on the GameCube.
NASCAR Thunder 2004. I
Thank
played
you.
that on PC all the time. My custom
Gr-
car, the Pontiacs.
Great game. My guy was Jimmy Johnson. I was in there from the beginning, but since he's won like 80, cups and series, everyone thinks, bandwagon. But no, I was in there from the beginning. 2004, my friend.
I was a Jeff Gordon guy all the way.
Classic.
The 2
This
4
movie,
car. What can I say?
this movie's so uninteresting. We're talking about NASCAR.
One of them has some like binocular flasks, which we love. We love the binocular flasks, but also bring back real binoculars. Then a guy in a large cowboy hat sits in front of Nick and his girlfriend. The race is like really loud, and then a mom sticks like tampons in her kids' ears. But I get like, okay, I guess I'm gonna say it. I guess right now, this is the premonition.
The premonition.
It starts off right away.
Yeah, it
100%.
starts off right away. Like it's just like this is kind of where we're at. I'm like, okay, cool.
It,
Um,
it it felt like the scene and the whole movie just felt like we just have a bunch of ideas for cool scenes, and we just have to find like a bare minimum thread to thread them together. You know,
yeah, it seemed like very Michael Bay like, except at least Michael Bay could make a fun car crash scene and make it
and
somewhat realistic.
and can tell a story. I mean, but yeah, I know what you mean.
But he was too busy with Transformers, which also was probably around this time. So the security guard tells the racist redneck to get his feet off the bleachers in front of his. Racist redneck says something racist.
Did you flinch? Get off your put your feet off the.
So I had this in my notes. Nothing. There's nothing racial about this. Like we're not talking about the race.
Right.
We're merely talking about stadium ushers telling you to get your feet off the seat in front of yours if they are open. I was at the Wizards game last week. We were there an hour before tip off to go watch Benedict Mathurin and TJ McConnell warm up for the Pacers, but they wouldn't let us down there. They had an usher in every single section. They were super picky because they have the worst attendance in the NBA. And it's like the season ticket holders are just like, well, we don't want them sitting in our seats. We paid for them. It's like, yeah, because you're the fucking suckers who paid for Wizard season tickets, you morons. No, I'm going to buy an $11 ticket and seat hop. No, they're super strict. You're going to sit in your section, in your seat, and they will yell at you when you're the only person in your section and you have your feet in front of them. Be like, hey, get your feet off of there. Fuck off, Washington Wizards. It is crazy how they share an ownership, an arena with the Washington Capitals. I had a great time with the Washington Capitals because Washington Capitals are at least competent and people want to go. Wizards, no. The Wizards are currently on my shit list. They can earn it back, but the Wizards currently on my shit list.
So basically, this movie visualized your experience at the Wizards game.
No, this movie is something completely different, but I'm only talking about the Wizards game because I don't even want to talk about this movie, but we're 4 fucking movies in now and I feel like we're in too deep.
Yep. All right. Sorry. We got sidetracked.
Again. So Nick is seeing that the bleacher that he sat on is like cracked and he's seeing cracks in the stadium foundation. We'll get to that in a second. Like a gust of wind blows over a can of motor oil in the pit lane and the 16 car skids on it. Oh, but 16 car recovers. Veteran move by Greg Biffle. A piece of paper gets blown over towards Nick and it has like a list of dead NASCAR drivers, which is like a really weird thing to put in a program.
Yep,
like
I agree.
I can't think of another sport. I can't think of a sporting event I've been to where there's an in memoriam in their program for like athletes that have died.
Unless it like just had happened, you know.
Yes, of course. He reads a shirt in front of him that reads "Life's a bitch and then you die. Any questions?" Which I would say is a very realistic shirt that you'd see at a NASCAR race.
Probably, yeah.
Nick gets like a chill and feels a gust of wind. It felt like something touched him. Then the 45 car goes out of the pits, but accidentally the screwdriver stayed out the back of the car. Ooh, Kyle Petty is not going to be happy with that. Screwdriver pops out on turn 3. Number 6 car is coming on the outside, runs over the screwdriver. David Reagan's got a flat.
We're having too much fun with the NASCAR part.
So the number 6 car gets a flat. It's spinning. And then for no reason, it just flips over and tumbles.
It was the gust of wind. It was Tony Todd coming through.
Again, for no reason, it just flips over and tumbles. And then its front 2 tires just fly off. And one of or not even tires, just the wheels fly off into the stands and decapitates a woman. The number 6 car, now in a ball of fire, physically impossible, goes flying over the fence and crashes into the stands. And then like more cars are crashing on the track, but we don't actually like see them like a chain reaction crashing on the track. We don't see a chain reaction of cars crashing on the track. Tongue twister. And then like at one point a hood of a car comes flying off and then slices two people in half. I think it was the tow truck driver and his wife. Then like another woman gets trampled. I think it's like the mom. And as she's on the ground, another engine comes like flying off and crushes her for no reason.
But we don't know
Again,
who any of these people are.
we don't
Like
know who
it's
any of
just
these we don't know who any of these people are. Again, these deaths probably very fun in 3D,
this is
but
this is like the first 7 minutes. Not even
if that.
like yeah.
The guy who was with the woman who got her head knocked off, who's in like shock, finally realized I should probably get out of here. He gets up, trips and falls, and then like is impaled by a piece of wooden bleacher that was sticking up through the back of his head through his mouth.
Cool
Again,
kill.
another 3D death. Like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
3D death where it's like it's an aerial shot.
Yep.
And then for some reason another car goes flying into the stands and blows up and then causes like the entire structure of the stadium to collapse. Like Nick's friends whose names I put this in my notes. Nick's friends whose names I don't even know yet get crushed. I know I could check Amazon X-ray that setting to see the actors, but fuck off. That's on them. A car that was already blown up in the stands blows up again for no reason. Gee, it's almost like it was the same director from the second fucking movie. And it kills Nick's girlfriend and the security guard, and then Nick goes flying into like the stadium foundation where he's impaled by a metal rod, 3D death, and then he wakes up.
It's the
Ooh.
premonition. Yeah, it's not good.
That's a premonition. So a few thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I think as a sports fan, as someone who's gone to many different stadiums, I think like a good, scary premonition, one that would definitely hit close home to me, would be like just a stadium collapsing,
Yeah.
like old foundation, stadium collapses, trample, panic, something
Right.
like that. Like I'm not saying like obviously it's a touchy subject and like something just happened in Indonesia where that happened. There's obviously the events that happened like that in Italy and England, most notably. Some similar
Hillsborough.
happened like that in Africa. Yeah. Like obviously like these movies take like potential real life situations to make those death scenes. If that was like a premonition where it's just old stadium collapses and there's a panic and there's a stampede, that would probably be the scariest premonition for me because that would totally hit close to home to me. Like that's something that legitimately scares me. So if it
I,
was just like the stadium collapsing, stuff like that, totally fine. But no, it had to be NASCAR and loud and cars and crashing and explosion, even though that would never fucking happen in a NASCAR race.
I wouldn't put it past this series when they're bringing up 9/11 and Final Destination 3 to touchy subjects, you know. So
Excellent point. Abe Lincoln.
yeah, Abe Lincoln. Too soon for my guy Abe. Um,
I apologize for the cursing, by the way, because I'm legitimately angry. I spent an hour and 20 minutes watching this movie last night, so I'm going to be cursing like a sailor because I'm legitimately angry about this still. I
I don't really have
want an hour and 20 minutes of my life back.
I don't really have a ton to say about this premonition. It's boring. It's stupid. Like you've said, we don't really know the characters. I thought the boyfriend, or Nick's friend, and his girlfriend dying by just getting smashed by a concrete. I thought that was just kind of like a cheat. Like you have these like 3D deaths that are probably cool in theaters, and then they just die like far off screen by getting smashed. I thought that was kind of lame. But that's literally my only point for this.
So Nick wakes up as his buddy pulls out the binoculars flask. Then it's like, oh, guy in a cowboy hat's going to sit in front of us. Guy in a cowboy hat shows up. The entire opening scene starts to play out. Nick starts panicking, and then it's our classic move of panic and then accidentally get into a fight. So he gets into
So
fights,
stupid. I was
get into some fight with some rednecks when he starts panicking. They get escorted out by the security guard. Yeah, like it
I,
was.
I was so pissed when they started fighting. I'm like, every single premonition has a fight, and of course, the people who are caught up in the fight are the ones that saved. I was so mad at that.
And then the crash actually happens, and then they're outside, and it's like, what is going on? Blah, blah, blah. And then the woman who gets her head taken off by a tire in the premonition gets her head taken off by a wheel that managed to fly outside the entire stadium,
Yeah,
which is impossible.
again, a 3D death for sure because it comes at
Oh,
you.
another 3D death. And then we get to the opening credits.
which are stupid.
We get to the opening credits. This is literally what I wrote down. What the fuck is this? Death metal, X-ray skeleton versions of deaths from prior movies. So they don't even foreshadow the deaths. I also put down, it looks like the skate video games when you wipe out. So we see barbed wire splitting a dude in 3 pieces. We see a knife killing Miss Luton. This is all in some very like CGI X-ray skeleton animated with death metal. Blah, 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 blah. And then we see an elevator and a nail gun and a cherry picker and a subway. And then Billy Hitchcock getting decapitated. That's not how he got decapitated. In the opening credits, they have him getting sliced like in the mouth. Like, no, it was a clean shot by the neck. Like, you guys didn't even get that right. It's a roller coaster, but then it ends with a bus. Shout out to
yeah.
Terry. Oh, and then there's also engine fans slicing a guy's head. R.I.P. Frankie Cheeks.
R.I.P. Frankie Cheeks. It was a title sequence that didn't fit the series and doesn't fit this movie.
Doesn't fit anything.
Yeah, it was totally random, and it was just like, oh, look at this cool CGI we can do, and it's just like, no, it looks bad and it's stupid. So
it wasn't even, was that cool CGI at the time?
It aged really badly. If it did,
it aged horribly.
Yeah.
So then we see our new friend. No, they're not our new friends.
Also,
we see the 4 friends. We see the 4 friends at Death by Caffeine.
See 4 people.
Cafe. We see 4 people, the main characters at Death by Caffeine Cafe. Hunt is just like, well, it's because I had my lucky coin, that's why I didn't die. And then they go to Memorial at McKinley Speedway. The mom thanks Nick for saving him, calls him a hero. The security guard thanks Nick. But then the tow truck driver, I keep putting down Carl, even though it's not his name, but it's Carl from Justified. Racist truck driver confronts the security guard and blames security guard for killing his wife.
We get an N-word.
Oh, not just any N-word, a hard R N-word, like very hard R. It was like, wow, like, oh, look at the Final Destination getting all edgy
in 2009, mind you. Like, this is. I was even taking them back a little bit. I was
too. I did not.
They went there.
They went there. So now we're in Nick's apartment. He's sleeping, and then he just has this horribly poor CGI animated dream of the next death. So that's our medium to move the story, is again visions, but not like cool kind of spooky visions, and not even like funny visions like in the second one where it's like, hook hands, what could that mean? That at least gets a laugh out of me. This is just like loud, obnoxious, poorly animated CGI. Like, there's different clues, so it's just like random things that makes a lot of noise, and it's loud, and they're obnoxious. These visions are obnoxious.
We'll come to it later when we talk about the ending, but there's a really obnoxious premonition at the end. But I agree with you. Like, these are just like, they're either way too long or they're just like random things, and you're just like, oh my god, he's going to die by scissors, and it's just like, oh, how did you get that?
So we go to our first death, and by the way, I don't even have like the list of when the death scenes happen, because it's, again, like, this movie is just death. There's like really nothing else pushing it. So I can't even like organize when the next death scenes are.
The first one is the racist truck driver. Which
is, I will give credit, this one was funny. I enjoyed this one a lot.
Well, I think it's because, I mean, we go from the hard.
Well, let's get into it. We can get into this death scene. It's fun.
Okay. We go from the hard R to basically him being mad at the security guard.
Yeah.
And then he like stalks him and like follows him, the security guard, home, and it's just like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna burn a cross.
Burn a cross on his yard.
And then he gets tripped up with, I'm sorry, Death comes in with the gust of wind and knocks
with a gust of wind, and it knocks like shit off his mirror, and then it turns on the radio that plays "Why Can't We Be Friends," which is a really funny song choice.
I thought that was a good song choice. That was good song choice.
And then it knocks the truck into like neutral or drive or something.
And so he gets this. Sorry,
he tries to stop the tow truck, but then he accidentally gets his foot grappled by the hook, and like oil and flammable things start leaking off the back. So he's getting dragged by his own runaway tow truck by the ankle. The chain is making sparks and stuff, and then the oil's spilling. So then it ignites him on fire. So he's just getting dragged by this tow truck on fire as Why Can't We Be Friends is bumping, which was really funny. I really enjoyed that. That's the like one of the few things they got in this movie right. And then the security guard walks out like, what is happening outside right now? And the tow truck just explodes. And
Of
then
course.
his charred, decapitated head just lands at the feet of the security guard with the facial reaction. "Ah!" Like, I know it's an audio medium here, but you know what? That was funny. That was a funny death scene. I really enjoyed that one. And it gave me a little bit of hope. I'm like, okay,
The guy's in two scenes though. Like it's just like, you know what I mean? Like I wish we had a little
yeah,
bit
I know,
more.
but I'm like, okay, like
No,
I thought this is how we are going to do all the deaths now. I'm like, oh, okay, we're going to have fun with this, like in the second one. But no, I was wrong.
not to tip my hand about our rankings later, but started from the top, and I think we're gonna do a little slow decline down, just in terms of.
I think it's very obvious that there's only one good death in this movie, and I think we just talked about it.
Oh wow, that's a big statement. I like to go through it a little bit more and think about it,
Okay,
but
okay. That's sorry.
but
I'm being irrational. I'm sorry.
I I
I'm
agree
being
with you
irrational.
that I agree with you that it was fun how he died, and it wasn't just like instant, that he was kind of like dragged through the street a little bit, and burning to death is like one of the worst ways to go. So good for. But then we just cut to the beauty salon, and it's just like no characterization. We're just going to go to the next death.
Well, before we get to that, we cut to Nick's girlfriend watching a cartoon
Oh,
of like something running on fire, and then Janet, whatever her name is, gives her a call, and this one of the most incredible acting scenes I've ever seen. Turn on channel 7. Remember the redneck from the racetrack? He's dead.
who are you talking about?
A
Because
plus acting. That was the brunette friend Janet. That's literally she's just like she called
Lori,
Lori,
who's
whoever her
the
name is, and it's just like and that's like the exposition where it's like, oh my god, they're dying now, but it was just such horrible acting.
Lori too. One of the worst I'm on the phone acting I've ever seen.
Like,
I
I'll turn it on right now.
Yeah.
Then Nick has another poor CGI vision. More exposition, how he sees visions, how the next person's gonna die. More exposition. I had a dream, and in that dream, there was a tow truck. What? And there was fire?
I don't know if you caught anything, but I in this movie they didn't reference anything else, any of the other movies. Like sometimes in the other movies they're like, "Oh, I saw it online."
They had one little Easter egg from an older movie.
But what I'm saying is like a character would be like, "Yeah, I'm online browsing and this happened 2 years ago and it's happening to
Yeah,
me." But
there
this one is Nick is
there
just like,
was
"Yeah, it's
there was
happening."
like one when they talked about it, there was one like newspaper, like we've been Googling this stuff. There was like one newspaper article that said Flight 180, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought they're just like brushing past that stuff, you
No,
know.
and it's clear that this movie was to be like, oh, it's a fun 3D horror movie where it's one thing to make a movie where it's not tied into the other ones, so you don't need prior knowledge to follow the plot. Except they didn't make this one with a plot. And
Very
I
true.
know I'm setting high expectations for the final destination, but still, like you people are killing me.
Oh, the fifth one's going to be way better than this, and I haven't seen it.
I I hope so. So now we go to the salon, and the whole salon scene is just a tease. Uh,
It's the teacher from the first one.
yeah, except at least that had a good death at the end. And I also have in my notes here, we're now 25 minutes into the movie, and I don't even know these characters' names for the most
Oh,
part. And
100%.
I have zero any sort of attachment, anything.
I just know her as Psycho Mom.
So this mom's kids are like throwing rocks at sign, like, oh, can't like bitch can't hit that sign with a rock, which realistic, classic. I was doing the same thing in 2009. The guy mowing the grass outside is telling them to like fuck off and stop throwing rocks there. Mom goes inside to get her hair done before they close because she was running late, and then the entire salon scene's a tease, like the chair doesn't stay up and the ceiling fan's loose and the curling irons and the hairspray and the leaking, all that.
The nail, that was nasty.
The nail, yeah, oh yeah, the nail. All you have to know is that nothing actually happens in the salon. And
Well,
then the kid, well, okay, technically in the salon, but the kids are being rambunctious, and she's like, "Boys, let's go. I've got my eye on you two." And then the lawnmower outside runs over a rock that comes shooting out and just takes out her eye and goes through the back of her head.
I want to revive Mythbusters and try that out if that could happen.
I don't think that can kill you, even if
It's gonna
like
blind you for sure. But like it's a small pebble and it takes out like her whole eye. I'm like, that wouldn't.
and like I don't it like I just assume it went through the entire back of the skull
Yeah.
because I don't think that could kill you. But
I don't think it would go that fast coming out of a lawnmower.
yeah.
And she is like away. It's not like she's
Oh
right
yeah,
next to
she's
it.
out in an instant, which I
Yeah.
don't think that's
No, but
very.
in terms of distance too, like she's
Yeah.
not
Oh yeah.
anywhere close to that
It's
lawnmower.
just another 3D death. But
Yeah, for sure. I just thought she was a total. Sorry to use my language here, but she was a total bitch coming into. I need my hair done, and at 5:50 when the salon closes at 6.
Nick and his friend are back in the apartment. It was the lady with the kids at the racetrack. We just lost a really hot MILF.
Oh, is this the scene where Hunt is like, um, I don't care about what you guys are talking about. I'm gonna go get laid.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that. I honestly can't keep track, but yeah, something like that. Uh,
Frankie cheeks.
don't you think it's weird that two people Nick saved are now dead? Well, weird is putting tampons in your kid's ear. She was bound to die sooner or later.
Hunt had some good lines,
Yeah, I
but he
guess.
was he was very
Really,
stereotypical.
really bad acting throughout
Absolutely,
all of this. Like not even
absolutely.
fun bad acting, just like kind of
He
annoying bad acting.
he had a couple of facial expressions that made me chuckle. Where someone was talking about like the premonitions, and he was just like, "I have no idea what you guys are talking about," and it's like, I could believe this character thinking that.
So now Nick and Lori they go to the racetrack to try to like piece it all together. And then the security guard confronts them. They go through the footage to try to piece together like, oh, who dies first and who does whatever. And they realize, oh, the mechanic is going to be next. So they go talk to the mechanic who's, working around the cars and all that stuff. And it's like, look, kid, I'm around Dave's equipment every day. If I was meant to die, it would have happened by now. They're standing outside like a fence, but it's not a chain linked fence. It's a very weird. I've never seen this type of fence before. It's like a
It looks like
checkered fence, like a chain linked fence, but it's very like thick. And then a van from the shop gets loose and almost backs him in and slices him through the fence. And he goes, well, guess it's not my turn to die. And it's like kiss of death in these fucking movies, you cocky
yeah.
asshole. And then like a giant tank of the NOS flies right into him and boom, he gets sliced through the fence.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the pastime, the pandemic pastime of making a cake look like something that isn't a cake. The body kind of looked like cakeish a little bit, or it was kind of coming apart like a cake.
I can see that. I did see, yeah. When I did see his dead corpse, I did think, tasty.
I didn't say tasty. I just meant it looked
No, no,
like
no. You said no, yeah. We were talking about cake. We're talking about cake, and it was tasty. It probably was made of cake. If we're being totally honest here. So now Nick is trying to get in contact with Janet and Hunt. Hunt is getting some action poolside while a bird took a shit on Janet's car, and like Janet's sunroof won't stop opening and closing. They're at an intersection, and Nick's at a bus stop, and there's an advertisement for Clear Rivers water, and I see it, and I'm like,
I caught
okay,
that.
that's fun. Well, of course you caught it because then they highlight it like,
Yeah.
and they highlight it, and then he has another bad CGI vision of water and all this, and it's like water, and it's just like, no, like you don't have to do that. Literally, all you have to do if he pulls up and it just says Clear Rivers water, and he looks at it, and he's just like feels something, and he goes water. That's it. Leave a little Easter egg for the loyal audience. Don't make it so painfully obvious. Like it's getting frustrating at this point. It's
Oh, but
frustrating knowing that I can make a better movie than this, and I've been in zero film classes.
by this point, I am just time watching and like, let's get this over with.
Oh yeah, that's always my signal if it's a bad movie, like how quick I check how much time is left, and
Yeah.
I'd been doing that honestly after 20 minutes.
But I do have to say that it's not a death scene, but the probably my favorite scene of this movie is the car wash scene where the Janet is trapped in the sunroof. I thought that was pretty like well, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, let's jump right into the car wash scene because Hunt Hunt's inevitable death and the car wash scene are kind of simultaneous, so it doesn't really matter. So Janet's at the car wash to get the bird shit off her car, and anyone who's a scrubbed up veteran like I am, you put the antenna down, you go into neutral, hands off the wheel, hands off the brake. I'm a pro at scrubbed up. We love so you get the little booklets power anytime we go scrub it up.
I don't own a car, so I'm
No,
gonna I'm
I
gonna
don't.
default to you.
I don't own a car either. I'm just a privileged kid using my parents' car. But I take it to scrub it up when they need it washed. Love those little booklets that like never expire. Of course, the sunroof that's acting up opens again while she's there, which by the way is funny because if you remember my brother's sob would leak through the sunroof when you took it through the car wash.
Oh, a little
So I was just dying laughing about a car wash with a faulty sunroof because all I could think of was that shit box for a car.
well, this is definitely a nicer version than what he had, but it stops right underneath the like I don't even know what
It was a pipe or
it
something.
was like. Yeah, it was like a random pipe, and it's just pouring water into her car, and like the door is locked, the windows are up, and she sticks her head out to like get out of the car, and the sunroof begins to like close and like locks in her head, and she's like trapped, and as the water's coming down on her. I thought it was really funny.
I thought it was a funny visual. I just thought like the tracks stopped. She couldn't get out. Then the tracks moved again. So it's just a faulty fuse box or something. But like her car doors were locked, wouldn't unlocked, didn't get that. The amount of water it take to flood that car and couldn't get out wasn't
It's
happening.
coming.
Has she
It's
not
coming.
seen has she not seen the third movie, Kick Out the Windshield?
Oh, good point. Nice, nice. I
Also,
like that.
throwback to the second movie because it definitely gave me elevator door vibes,
Oh, true. Yeah, they're just doing like the greatest hits here.
except poorly. So then the car starts moving, her head's sticking out, and then the little rolly thingy.
Yeah.
When you get see at Scrub It Up in Framingham Natick, they don't have the upward rolly thing. It's on the sides.
Ah,
So
interesting.
if she went to Scrub It Up in Framingham, she would have been fine. I honestly don't think she would have been decapitated with that
No, it's
rolling
just like
thing.
it's just like
She
bristles,
would have
right?
gotten like a bunch of like things broken and maybe like a neck and that type of stuff, but I don't think it's pressured enough where it can decapitate you.
You
I think it would hurt a lot.
you want to give it a try?
No, I'm good. But
Well,
security guard and Lori eventually save her.
and as this is happening, this is intercutting with Hunt's death.
Yes. So Hunt was getting some action by the pool, gratuitous. It's like I'm still going. I'm still going. It's like no, I'm finished. What? Yeah, I finished like 4 minutes ago.
When he's on the phone texting.
He's on yeah on the phone texting. He leaves. Nick's trying to call him. A kid with a super soaker douses him and breaks his phone. And the Hunt's like, "Give me the gun." The kid's like, "No." So he pops the kid's little raft and takes the super soaker. And then throws the super soaker over a fence, but it's the fence where the pool pump is. Then it accidentally hits like drain, and then someone on the golf course shanks a shot, hits him. He drops his lucky coin into the pool that goes into the drain. He's got to get his lucky coin.
This is the problem with the movie. Like it never established any of these locations. So they cut to like a person golfing, and I'm like, what are we doing here? you know?
I think it was a country club.
Well, I
I
get
assumed
like
it was a country club.
after the fact, like I understood, but like there is literally a hard cut to like two random people golfing, and I'm like, what's going on? This was not set up at all.
Yeah. Also, so he goes into the pool and he goes into the drain, but the pool is draining and he gets his ass stuck to the pool. And no one notices him down there. And he's drowning and the pool keeps draining and he pretty much gets disemboweled through his
Yeah,
ass.
he
And his
gets sucked
innard
through.
yeah, he gets sucked through and his innards like pop through whatever pump system outside the pool. I think I've seen the pool death on YouTube before and it's actually different. I think there's
Okay.
two versions of this death
Okay.
because
Do you want to explain?
I've seen one on YouTube where his innards go through. You know, like in pools, there's little things on the side
Yeah.
where the water goes through. His innards went through there, so the whole pool turned red, and
Okay.
people are
Yep.
just like, But on this one, his innards went bursting through. Oh, you know what? Probably what the 3D version. It was a 3D
Yeah.
death. The aerial
Right.
shot of his innards bursting through a pump, while the other one, it's a non 3D death. See, this is what this fucking director, man, him and his goddamn 3D.
I like that you put a little research into this, looking at pool deaths.
Well, I know, and I just know I've seen that one before. I didn't know what
It's
movie it was. I didn't know which number it was, but I knew there was a pool death
as
scene
soon
at some point.
he gets stuck to the suction, you just like where this movie's going, and you're just
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
that's gonna suck.
Heyo. So Nick and Lori are trying to explain to the security guard, like, oh, we could have a way out. And then they find the security guard trying to hang himself, but the rope breaks. And he's like, I've been trying to kill myself like all day long, but nothing's working. I took a bunch of painkillers. I threw him up, like tried to kill him with my car. It didn't work. So they're like, well, if like that means God, like it's not for you. So like we've broken the chain. We're all good. Let's pop champagne and they're celebrating uplifting music and blah 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 blah. We've done it. I'm gonna live my life to the fullest, babe. You know we always talk about traveling. Let's do it. So we flash forward to fucking whenever.
It's 4 days later
Is it 4 days later?
that they find a news report that another person was rescued. So like the lineup is unchanged. Like that other person that was rescued is next to die.
Cowboy hat.
Cowboy
And
hat.
then Nick has
Yes.
another bad CGI vision. So Cowboy Hat is in the hospital, and the floor above him, there's an old man getting a bath ready. And the people just
The the worst
forget about
hospital.
him.
The
Worst
worst.
hospital I've ever seen.
They let the tub overflow with water and just flood the room. I'm
And
like,
leave the old man in there who's like, "Ah."
and then below, and the floor below is this cowboy hat guy in a bed. He's like all burnt up and he can't escape. And the water's coming through and the ceiling tiles are coming through. And I really love, I really, the probably the funniest part of this movie was Nick and George getting to the hospital, realizing that they have to go save this guy. And they're just like hanging out in the elevator with other hospital personnel, and they're talking about like, yeah, I have visions, we have to save this guy from death, blah blah blah. What else are people thinking? Like, psych ward is that way, people? Like,
Well, there should be. I also like. How do they even know what floor to go to?
oh yeah, 100%. Like they just walk right into the hospital and right into the elevator. Like they know where this guy is, and
And
then they get off the floor, and they just know what room. Yeah, everything is just there written on the wall for them.
and then the
Uh,
tub falls through the ceiling,
as soon as they
crushes and
get there,
kills Cowboy's hat, and then it pans to the old man on the other floor who just goes,
it's a little also a little too neat, if you guess my drift.
And so then we go back to Lori and Janet shopping at the mall. There's some geeks from the Brookstone playing with RC cars, and then the little RC NASCAR bumps Lori in the foot. Is that number 6 car? Is it David
What
Reagan?
was it? I didn't
Yeah, it was
notice.
the number 6 car, David Reagan.
Oh,
So now we're back at the hospital. They're walking out of the hospital building, trying to put pieces together, and then boom, out of nowhere, ambulance just plows into George, the security guard.
this is what
I did not see that coming.
this is. Well, it's a little Final Destination 1 vibes here with what was her name, getting hit by the bus.
Different because don't even put this on another plane as Terry.
No,
It
I
was just a
I
very sudden death.
correct. I in that plane it was. This is when I said fuck you to this movie because we'll go through it a little bit, but the George dying and the next 10 minutes are all a premonition. And
Yep.
I'm like, the premonitions so far, besides the first one, which are always longer, are just like little cutscenes, little glimpses. This was a full 5 to 10 minute scene.
Oh yeah.
And as soon as it's over, carnage, all that stuff, all of a sudden you're just like, go back to Nick and George at the hospital. And you're just like, I just wasted 10 fucking minutes of my life.
Yeah, and by the way, don't even compare the second premonition to the subway second premonition. I
Oh,
will
this
don't say it. Don't you dare say it.
this one by far made me more angry and sucks.
Thank you. No, the second premonition and the for Final Destination 3, that was good. That was well done. That was a good ending. These are different. These are not the same.
This one sucked ass.
Thank you.
But you want to go through it?
We're going to go through it. I just don't want you bad mouthing a very good second premonition death scene in a movie that I actually now, you know how I said, here's what I will take back. You know how I said that the ending saved Final Destination 3? I take that back. That was aggressive. It was a good ending. And in terms of this, like the scale has shifted. I'm now willing to say Final Destination 3, good movie.
Well, yeah, when you compare it to this, for sure. 100%.
Exactly. It's a moving scale.
This movie sucks from the first minute. And I will say that the second premonition in this movie is the nail in the coffin of this movie.
Honestly, the movie should have just ended after the second premonition. Let's go through this now. So we go back to the mall. There's a lot of construction going on. Laurie has a new pair of kicks, but the shoelace gets stuck in the escalator. Nick has a CGI vision of the movie theater blowing up because of the construction going on in the movie theater. Why are there so many flammable things in that construction area behind the theater screen? They have no reason to be there. Laurie's at the movie theater with Janet, and Janet had a little quip, by the way, at the NASCAR scene. Like, I wish I was at the movies instead. Then, like, similar things start happening, like at the NASCAR race, like someone's like down in front and the security guard getting the feet off, whatever. So Nick grabs Laurie from the theater, but Janet's like, I'm not leaving. I'm tired of you guys. You guys are crazy. We've cheated this. Like, I was supposed to be here anyway instead of going to the racetrack. And then the movie theater explodes. Janet gets impaled with nails and pipes, 3D death, whatever. Then the entire mall just starts exploding for no reason. Nick and Laurie are on an escalator, and then like the escalator collapses, but it's still like the underbelly is still running. And then Laurie falls into the underbelly of the escalator and then just gets ground up like ground beef. And
that sucks. That sucked.
That one was gruesome. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, that's fucking shitty. And I'll explain to you later why I actually kind of enjoyed that specific death scene.
Okay.
And then Nick all of a sudden just wakes up right before the ambulance, and it's a second premonition, as we just talked about. So then Nick goes and tries to stop the fire from the construction site. He's in the construction site. The fire alarm doesn't work. The fire extinguisher runs out. And then like right as Nick puts out a fire, another one starts, and then like a nail gun falls and he gets crucified to the wall.
You missed the important part is he wakes up from the second premonition, but a little too late and can't save George.
Yeah, he's just like, dies. Look out, and it's bam, and it's like, okay. But yeah. We don't even see it the second time.
Right, correct. Anyways, but then it goes exactly as you said. He goes to the movie theater or tries to go to the mall and tries to save them, and then that another nail gun situation here with getting his hand nailed to the wall.
And then he manages, so he holds up like a long piece of wood that was on fire to get the sprinklers to go.
Smart,
but even smarter, even if you just hit the sprinkler with anything, it causes them to go off.
Oh, interesting.
So it didn't need to be on fire. If you like threw a shoe at it, it sets off the sprinklers.
Oh, good to know.
Yeah. So like literally, if you're in a fire and you get the sprinkler going, just throw anything at the sprinkler. Even if that one breaks, the other one will go off.
Life hacks from Pete. I like it.
Someone's gonna die in a fiery accident. It's like you told me the sprinklers would go off.
While listening to this episode.
Your Honor, he clearly said on Sip Talk.
And then
He saves the day. He stops the fire. He saves the day. And then it's 2 weeks later. They're back at Death by Caffeine Cafe. And then everything starts getting put back together, like the homeless guy before the bird shat on Jan's car. And there's an ad for a country club as well as the movie. Don't compare this to the subway, Bauer. Do not compare this ending to number 3.
They tried a little comedy where the two women get like tea and he gets like this like chocolate mocha drink and he's like, well, I gotta live a little. I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm sorry. I'm just like, I just hate all these people in this.
There's a barista out there who had to make that monstrosity.
Oh,
I was offended.
And then he tasted it and he's like, yeah, it's not good. Like, no fucking shit.
Yeah, it was like those kids who always got the unicorn frappuccino and it tasted terrible and they just threw it away anyway. Yeah. We had to make those.
So then
cowards.
Then they sit down next to a window that's clearly CGI. It looked, for me, you only see like 2 seconds. It looked a little like the Paris scene in the first movie.
That's generous.
At least that was the kind of vibe that they were going for. And then how do we end? A loose scaffold like collapses, causing a truck to swerve and obliterate them.
But not just obliterate them. During contact, we go back into skeleton death metal mode like the opening credits, and they get crushed and die like it's Skate 3 for PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360.
As soon as the truck crashes through the window, you're right. We cut to the skeletons where we see one of them gets obliterated, one of them gets thrown and hit against the wall, and their teeth come out, and one of their like neck snaps. So it's just like
the second they went back to skeleton mode, I'm shocked you watched that. The second they went back to skeleton mode, I turned it off. I was just like, nope, I'm done. Fuck this. Well,
they do it in slow-mo. And then after no, it's not cool.
They do the same thing in Skate.
And then they go to credits, and then I will have to say this movie is 82 minutes long. There's probably 15 minutes of story. I'm not kidding. The
82 minutes long, and it was too long, like way too long.
There's that 10-minute second premonition. They are just like, yeah, we have 60-minute movie here, and we need to stretch it to 82.
All right, Bauer, we got to rank some death scenes, and let me tell you, this might be the hardest one because we have 10 of them that we're ranking this time around, and they're all bad or mediocre. There aren't too many good ones that stand out, so it's just tough to rank them. And I know which ones I hate, like really do not like.
Okay.
So I'll start with number 10, and that is the final scene where Nick, Laurie, and Janet are killed by the truck, and then it goes skeleton mode. As I just mentioned, I just turned it off. I'm like, I'm fucking done. So honestly, like a lot of these, I think are just based on how late in the movie they came because I was just angry. So that was my number 10.
I'm gonna go agree with you. I was so checked out by the final scene that when they died, I was just like, I really don't care. So, and if we're talking like scene, we don't even see them die. We see them skeleton mode. So lame. That's easily number 10.
Number 9, I'm going Janet killed in the movie theater explosion during the second premonition.
I agree with you.
And that's like, if that was not a second premonition, it would be higher. But the fact that second premonition pissed me off made it lower. And then looking back at it, like I knew it was going to be very predictable death. You knew she was going to die. And it was just like,
it was lame.
It was just lame. And the second premonition just kind of ruined it. So that was also your number 9.
Yes, I agree.
Number 8, I'm going mechanic slice through the fence.
Okay.
Just, it was fine, average, boring, whatever. You know how much I hate I guess it's not my time to die yet. And then they fucking die. I thought if someone's going to get sliced through the fence, I don't know, make it a little more fun, you know?
Yeah. for sure. Not by the freaking carbon dioxide tank.
They've already had a barbed wire death in the second one that was actually kind of good. So
That's true. For my number eight, right? Yeah, eight would be the ambulance. George getting killed by the ambulance. It's such a like off-screen, who cares, that kind of death that so not memorable for me.
interesting. Okay. So my number seven is the mom getting her eye taken out.
Wow, low.
Only gets to number seven because I got my eye on you. I chuckled. But other than that, I don't tease me like that in the salon. Like, wrap this up. That took way too long.
It does take too long. My number seven is the fence for the reasons that you said. So pretty low on my list as well, just because it is kind of like a hokey joke that we've seen before, where it's just like, you can't kill me, and then he dies right away. It's just like been there, done that.
Number six, I'm going the first premonition, the NASCAR premonition.
Oh,
Think that was fair. It was just way too unrealistic for me. There were some elements as a sports fan, like, yeah, collapsing stadium, old stadium kind of scares me a little bit, but just everything they went about it. I hold premonitions to a higher standard, and when it sucks, it's going to cost you. So I leave that at number six. Also, because I didn't know any of the people.
I agree with you. It's my number six too. Very boring list so far. But I had this higher. It would be lower on my list. I had this higher because I want to give it the benefit of the doubt that it would be cool in theaters, 3D. So if it ever is re-released in 3D, I would go just for
Don't
the
even
NASCAR
give David R. Ellis that idea.
But there is some cool 3D stuff going. Not cool, I'm using that term very loosely, but entertaining 3D deaths in that opening scene, especially the tire at the end.
What was number six?
That was my number six. My number five would be the Hunt getting sucked in by the pool.
That was also
Only
my number. That was also my number five.
All right. I think it's a pretty entertaining scene in the sense that Hunt is the only one with a little bit of a personality. We don't like Hunt, but it's like he's the only one that we can kind of like, I get a sense of who you are and kind of get behind. So when his death comes, it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. The only non-boring person of this movie dies.
For my number four, I went cowboy hat getting crushed by a tub.
All
Just
right.
just because of how funny it was, how negligent that
Yeah.
hospital is, and the old man at the end who's just hanging in his little like
Yeah.
like old man hangers going. Ah!
My
That was
number
funny. I also love where they would pan to outside the door and you can't hear him, and he's just like, "Hey, hey!"
my number four is the tow truck scene. Um, Again, it comes right after we kind of get any inclination of who the what's his name? Carter. Is he the tow truck driver?
Uh, I don't know. I call him
Yeah.
Carl. I call him Carl because that's who the
Anyways,
actor plays in Justified. I do not know his name.
okay. Anyways, it comes right after like his one scene of dialogue. And he's kind of like a very stereotypical white supremacist racist. So it's very satisfying to see him die, but it as a scene, I was just like, okay, it's kind of like a one-off. Kind of move on to the next thing.
My number three was a security guard getting killed by the ambulance.
Oh wow,
And I
that's
wasn't gonna dock that one being a second premonition. I think because it was the first death that like happens when you realize that. I wasn't expecting it. Like it came as a shock. He seemed like a guy who they were gonna take to the end. I also like the actor, so maybe I had a little bit of attachment there. But I like when it happened, like I jumped back, but I was just like, whoa, like I didn't see that
oh,
one coming. So
did you
I wasn't gonna rank it that low.
did you jump at the premonition death or his actual death?
The premonition death.
All right, so that doesn't count. I mean, I guess it does count, but it's just like
No,
I just want
wait. Does that
no,
are we not counting
no, you're
second
right.
premonition deaths? Because
No,
Janet in the movie theater was a
you're
premonition death.
no, you're right. I misspoke. But what I'm saying is the fact that he actually dies by the premonition, exactly the same way, only 2 seconds after the premonition ends. I just thought it was like it came a little too fast for me.
No,
I could have used a
that's
little
fair.
more
That's
George.
fair. That's fair.
Three, I would go the salon scene. Um, it goes on a little too long, As is this short movie has a lot of too long scenes, which is kind of funny. But it goes on a little too long. But the um her getting her nails like cleaned and it's just like it plays with that with her getting like stabbed. It's just like it kind of grossed me out. And then you're right, the line with the eye, I thought it was pretty funny. So that's number three for me.
My number two is I'm going Lori getting ground up in the underbelly of the escalator, because not only is it gruesome, as someone who rides the Washington D.C. Metro every day, and they're always doing work on the escalators, and I can always see like the underbelly of the escalator, especially DuPont Circle, where you're so high up, and you can just see like all the different moving pieces, and you're so high up, and it's just pitch dark down there, and it's scary. And then like sometimes you're on a high metro like where I am, sometimes in Clarendon or even in Tacoma. They were when I was back in Tacoma, they're always doing work. And at some points it like rattles a little bit because they're still working. I like DC Metro escalators are terrifying. So seeing her get ground up by that escalator, I legitimately was like, oh God, like I'm not ruling that out for me.
I agree with what you said, which is why I'll just say my two and one. My number two is the tub scene, and my number one is the escalator scene, just for kind of again what you said, but also just the gruesomeness of it.
My number one was the tow truck.
All right.
You know, I love the music choice. It was the only scene where I was like laughing. And I think because it was a good first death. Like we talk about, he only had two lines of dialogue, but it's
Yep.
why he goes out first. It's
Yep.
like it's those fun first deaths, and his charred head in the face. I laughed. It was a funny scene, and it gave me high expectations that, oh, this is what this movie is, because I knew that this was the director of the second movie, and so I'm thinking back to the second movie. Okay, Found Destination 2 knew what it was. Like the ending was hilarious. We love that scene. Some of these deaths are wacky and just ridiculous, but they're funny because this movie knows what it is. When I see that tow truck scene, I'm like, perfect. This movie knows what it is, until I realize it doesn't. And so it was frustrating after that. So it was really one of the few high points I had in this movie. And it was really the only individual scene I can take from this movie and say, I enjoyed that scene. There's some parts of this movie that I enjoyed, but for the most part, it was awful. And there was only one scene that I actually enjoyed, and it was under 5 minutes. But
You
like that, I'm going to make that my number one.
you
But like
started off.
in terms of the final rankings we're going to make, this isn't going to be very high. There's no way any of these even make
Yeah.
the top 20.
I can't say for sure, but am going to I'm going to put a bet that these deaths don't make the top 15 for sure.
I can't imagine it. We'll probably
You-
we still need to figure out what we're doing for our finale. I know we're gonna have a Hall of Shame before we do our
I just
big top 25 reveal. College football committee, found the Final Destination committee.
Oh, I like it. I like where this is going. I do want to end my thoughts by saying you started off this podcast by calling this like one of the worst movies you've ever seen or the worst movie you've ever seen. I don't like to deal with best and worst because I haven't seen every single movie, so I can't say best or worst. I will bet my life savings that this will be the worst movie I will ever see.
You don't think you'll ever see a worse movie than this?
That is correct. I'm
You
putting my
might.
life savings.
You probably have to go out of your way to find one. I haven't seen a movie worse than this.
I have
So
not
I'm
seen.
glad you say that. If I find one, I'll let you know and we can watch it.
I have not seen a worse movie up until this point, and I don't think in my life I will see a worse movie than this.
I think what also, like, you could probably find a worse movie that some
Oh,
college
yeah,
kids made, but in terms of like a number one box
yeah.
office movie, I don't think we
Oh,
find a movie worse than this. A movie that was number one for 2 weeks. There's no way. This movie was horrible.
I agree, and it would be a fun little project to like put the 2000s number one movies, all the movies that were number one in the 2000s together. This would be at the bottom of the list. I can
I
assure
can
you.
barely get through five of these movies. Let's tone it down with these projects.
I'm sorry.
That is it for the Final Destination. Next week, we wrap up this 5-part series with Final Destination 5. And then we will have our grand finale where we rank our favorite death scenes. Bauer, thank you for joining me. I don't have anything witty to say because the movie was awful. They didn't give me any work. So, yeah, go home. Why are you listening to this?
Fuck this movie.
Fuck this movie.